Now that you've kind of had time to reflect on Black Hawk Down, since we've had some time between that now and then, how do you kind of view that and how your life has played out?
I came back from Somalia different.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Mountain Tough Podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Defenderfer, and I am so glad that you are here. We absolutely love seeing you come back to this show week after week, and it is our goal every single episode to bring you an inspiring guest that helps you with that mental toughness, that mental fitness, that mindset, so that you can add some tools to that mental toughness toolbox so that you can live always ready. If you are a first-time listener to this show, quickly, I want to make sure you know, as a listener of this podcast, you do get 6 weeks for free on the Mountain Tough training app, Mountain Tough Plus. All you need to do to take advantage of that offer is go to MountainTough.com, click Start Free Trial, and then at checkout, use the code MOUNTAINPOD. That's all caps, all one word, MTNPOD. That gets you guys going for 6 weeks for free. So that's all of our physical programming, spiritual, nutritional, mindset. That code is going to unlock you for 6 weeks. Again, that code is MTNPOD. Shifting gears now to today's guest. This is a very special episode. On the show today, we have someone who's going to get into the deep questions around faith, courage, and leadership. We have Jeff Struecker. Jeff is a former United States Army Ranger who served in the 75th Ranger Regiment. He was in the Battle of Mogadishu in Somalia, which many of you have seen via the movie Black Hawk Down. After 23 years of service, he has been an Army chaplain. He was inducted into the U.S. Army Ranger Hall of Fame. He's a best-selling author and international speaker. And recently, he is also a church planter and a pastor. So a phenomenal human being, an exceptional human being. We are going to get into his story today and get into how we can apply it into our own lives as we pursue this elite lifestyle. So please stand by for Jeff Struecker. I wanted to start just on kind of hearing from you what the last, 3, 4, 5 years of life has looked like for you, what you've been up to,
Sure.
What your passions are now.
Yeah. Hey, I should tell you guys the reason why I agreed to be a guest on the show. I get lots of requests and don't have time to take them all, so I turn a bunch of them down. But man, for me, physical toughness is something that I'm fascinated by. I have this lifelong interest and to some degree passion around mental toughness. And when you add the mountains to that equation, like that right there is the epicenter of what makes me interested, what causes me to tick. So I'd love to stay in touch with you guys as you start to continue to explore, as the Rangers continue to explore what physical toughness, mental toughness looks like, especially with a heavy load at elevation and surrounded and vastly outnumbered by an armed enemy.
Yeah. Very fascinating.
Last couple of years, I retired from the Army more than a decade ago, not a little bit more than a decade ago, but I live in the same military community that I spent almost all of my career in. And I did that on purpose. My wife and I are high school sweethearts. We don't come from South Georgia, but we fell in love with the people of this place and the people that the military brings to our community. So I've tried to stay highly engaged with the military. I kind of asked God for a favor after I retired from the Army, and that favor was, God, if you'll let me, I will give the rest of my life back to the military that gave back to me, or that gave so much to me, and I'll try to both honor our country and make an impact for you at the same time.
That's incredible.
That's what I try to do with my time. Now, I am the pastor of a church. We planted a church 5 years ago here in Columbus, Georgia. And Columbus is the sister city to Fort Benning, America's largest military base, home of the Army's Rangers, as well as the infantry, airborne, the tankers. There's a bunch of other stuff that goes on here. But we planted a church for the purposes of trying to reach and encourage the military while they're here. The vast majority of them are just here in training status. And so they're passed through for just a few weeks or a few months. And we want to pour everything that we've got into them. But I'm a guy who I have been since I was a teenager, and I'm talking middle school now. I don't want to tell everybody how long ago. Well, I'll just tell you, I'm in my mid 50s. And for more than 40 years, I've been a distance runner, a marathoner or ultra marathoner. And I still try to train at that level. I still try to compete at that level. And so when I have spare time, I'm either reading, I'm spending time with warriors, or I'm running. And there's not a lot of spare time in my calendar.
Yeah.
But when I do have spare time, that's what I'm doing. When I say running, I'm out early in the morning at an unholy time of day, out early in the morning, put in as many miles as I can on the road before I try to get into the office and get stuff done.
Incredible.
That's kind of me in a nutshell over the last 5 years.
That's amazing. And it does make me curious. So a big theme of this podcast over the last year has been kind of some questions to guess around like the state of the union on American men. So if you think about all that is going on geopolitically right now, there's a lot. And then economically, society-wise, there's a lot of different things going on that are creating potentials for havoc in a lot of guys' lives. And then there are the symptoms saying that is going on. So like anxiety, depression, suicide, substance abuse are all at epidemic high record levels. And then you have just kind of the guys that aren't maybe struggling with an addiction. You do have this large demographic of guys feeling numb, guys feeling passive, complacent. And so that is fascinating with your experience and what you're doing now, when then you take that to another layer of like the warrior man. And how would you say that the warrior man is doing here sitting in 2026?
Yeah.
And kind of what are you seeing there from like a 30,000 foot level?
Sure. Yeah, man, I could camp here because I travel. I get invited to travel a lot, and almost 100%, not quite, but almost 100% of what I'm invited to do are men's events at colleges and universities, at churches, civic events, sometimes corporate events, but it's largely, almost entirely men. And I get a chance to see masculinity in America while I'm on the road. And then I come back to my hometown, which is kind of the epicenter of masculinity in America. And I'm not exaggerating when I use this phrase. If you think about it, we're a military town. We're a very large military town. We're one of America's largest military towns. And it's not just a large military town, but a specific type of the military comes here, and only a specific type. So I get a chance to see masculinity in America when I'm traveling. I come back home and I get a chance to see masculinity in the military. And wow, I am deeply concerned about our country and the future of masculinity at large. But I am absolutely convinced, as much today as ever before in my lifetime, that our military, the guys in our military, gals too, they're extraordinary, and we're in good hands militarily. What I tell people is, I don't get a chance to talk about this very often, but I tell people, like, because of where I get invited to go and what I get invited to do, I get a chance to see something that's really, really scary. And what scares me is the gap between the military and the rest of America. It's growing wider and wider every day. And there are not enough words to use to describe how incredible our military is.
Yeah.
But then when I compare them to the general population, I'm like, this is bad. This is really, really bad. This is scary bad. And one of my deep concerns is that gap may get so wide that it can never be closed again. And that's not good for our country. It's not good for our future. If our military is that exceptional and the rest of our country is that abysmal, and that's where I see us heading right now. And man, I have nothing but great things to say about our country, or about our military, but I'm very concerned about the future of our country in general.
Mm-hmm.
And especially about masculinity, manhood in America.
Yeah, I see it. I mean, I see it when we went there too, like when we've had the opportunity to visit 375, which I know is a special operations community inside of that community. And so you are looking at and being around a lot of individuals that are pushing each other extremely hard, and they are pushing the limits of each other extremely hard. And that environment, it makes you, even if you're like an ultra marathoner, it makes you feel kind of lazy because everyone is
exceptional.
Yeah. They're really
every single one of them is exceptional.
It's incredible. Not only physically and mentally, it's like they are complete physical specimens, but then you'll hear them talking about like rotating out for Duke MBAs or Yale MBAs. So intellectually, they're incredible human beings too. And so, but it is obvious at that place that part of the equation is community, in the way that they push each other in an organization like that really is a key component. And that seems to be a key component that has gone missing on the outside. If you're talking about civilians, is the loneliness and the isolation seems to be an equation in that.
Yeah. I think human capacity, a lot of us have room. Well, all of us have room to improve. Some of us have room to improve a lot. And it doesn't even matter what area of your life I'm talking about right now, myself included. A lot of us have room to improve a lot. But when you start to get at the 90, 92, 95% of your capacity, it gets really, really hard to improve after that. Where guys are able to move from the 90% to 100% of their capacity is almost exclusively in a community of other dudes that are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
In other words, they got up in the morning, they went hard, they gave it a lot, but they didn't give it they went at 90% or 92%, but they didn't give it everything until they noticed that the guy right next to them was going at 100%. And when the guy right next to him was going at 100%, then he decided, you know what, I better step it up and start going at 100%. And sure enough, on the other side of him was another dude that was going at 95%, and he saw you going at 100%, and all of a sudden he decided, I better step it up and start going at 100%. And this is what happens to every great sports team on the planet. One or two dudes show up, they start going at 100%, and pretty soon everybody that was already at 90%, they all decide, I'm going to start getting to 100%.
Yeah.
And that, you could argue, I don't know that we have the conclusive research to back this up, but you could argue that really won't happen except for in a community. And not just a community, but if you want to be exceptional, you got to be in a community of exceptional people.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that and witnessed that and experienced that. And it is difficult to do on the civilian side of life. And it raises the question in me for you around, like, on the civilian side, creating a community like that is doable but quite difficult.
Yeah.
And when you do it and find it, it can completely change the whole trajectory of your entire life, physically, mentally, spiritually.
Yeah, I would say not only can it will. It's a guarantee. It will change your life when you start to get around a community. And you only need 2 or 3 of them. I'll just say it that way. You won't really only need 2 or 3, and it will change your life.
Yep. And quickly too. Quite quickly. Yeah. For more than a century, America's sportsmen and women have led the way in paying for the restoration of wildlife, conserving habitat, and investing in the future of our natural world. This is a legacy built not on what we take ourselves, but on what we give back. That's the nature of conservation, paying it forward for the next generation. This is the reason Mountain Tough is a proud partner of Wild Sheep Foundation, an organization committed to keeping and putting wild sheep on the mountain. If you're not already a member, learn more today at wildsheepfoundation.org.
I'll give you guys a quick example if you don't mind. I rarely, for decades, ever ran with another guy. I just got up every morning, did my thing as hard as I could. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, I started running with another dude somebody invited me to run with another guy. I was like, I don't know, I typically push myself pretty hard. I don't want to sit there and get held back by some old man who's not working hard. Long story short, I got out there the first time I went out there, and everybody that I was running with was older than me, and I was struggling to keep up. But there was one guy that it occurred to me, this guy can blow my doors off without even attempting it. And he's 5 or 6 years older than me. Every single week now, without fail, for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been running with that guy, and he is the only guy in my life that I have run with for more than just a few times. And I tell him regularly, his name is John. I say, John, I'm out here running with you at 4 o'clock in the morning. And he's like, because we both needed to get a workout. I was like, no, John, you're the only guy in town that I know I'm going to have trouble keeping up with today. And if I don't run with you today, I won't push myself as hard. So I need a guy like you, John. And he's like, Jeff, I am killing myself to stay up with you. And I was like, I don't know if it's you or if it's me, but there's no way I would run this hard today if you weren't out here with me. And maybe he would say the same thing about me. But the only guy that I will run with voluntarily is John, because I really struggle to keep up with that guy. And by the way, I'm 56, John is 61.
Dang.
And that dude is perhaps one of the fastest, toughest runners I've ever met in my life. And I'm still struggling to keep up with that old man.
Yeah. It's iron sharpens iron. I mean,
yeah, that's it.
It's biblical. It's in scripture, and it's so true. So how do you correlate that to transition? So like in the civilian world, a transition can be quite difficult. You're walking away from an old identity. Maybe you put too much identity into your old thing, and you're entering a new thing. I talk all the time with my colleagues and friends that transition, especially coming out of those special operations communities, has to be incredibly difficult, because you're walking away from all those brothers that are pushing you hard every day in that environment. You're all like-minded.
Yeah.
And now your identity shift has to be pretty massive. With what you're doing now and what you've been up to the last couple of years, how are guys navigating that well?
Yeah. Well, you nailed it. You just described it really, really well. I'll tell you, almost everybody who spent a long time in the military, didn't matter what branch of the military, what you did in the military, all of them struggled to some degree. There was a degree of struggle when they got out of the military. And I think that's not a bad thing, because the military just gives them purpose and direction. It gives them identity. It gives them bonds that are going to be hard to replicate outside of the military. But if you're in the elite part of the military, the people that you're around are elite, and the longer that you're around them, the harder this gets. So I can say this without any hesitation. I have not met one guy or gal who served with the people that we served with, who did what we did and didn't struggle a lot. And I mean a lot with it. And I've been retired now for more than 10 years, and I struggle every day with no longer being in the military. Now I'm surrounded by the military every day, all day long, because of the community that I live in. These guys and gals are all around me all the time. So I describe it this way. It's like being in love with an old girlfriend and I'm not dating her anymore, but I'm close enough that I still want to kiss her, but I just am not married to her or dating her anymore. And that's what it's like being in this military town that I'm in.
Yeah.
But I thought to myself, surely I'll get out of the military. I've prepared. I'm ready spiritually and financially, and our family's ready. And I was shocked by how hard this was. And it stayed hard and is still hard for a long, long time. And I wrestled personally with like, what's going on inside of me? Why is this such a struggle? And maybe I'm a little bit slower than the average guy, but it took me a while to realize, you know what it is? It's the people. Like I'm surrounded by people. I'm surrounded by pretty awesome people, but they're nothing like the people that I was surrounded by in the military. And really what I notice is I'm kind of mourning or grieving not having those kind of dudes in my life every minute of every day.
Yeah.
There were days that I hated it and thought I can't wait to get out of the military until I got out. And then I realized how exceptional they were and how hard it is to, well, let's just be honest. I'm not going to be able to replace people like that. Because of this growing gap, not in the average population in America. There are exceptional people out there, don't get me wrong, that didn't serve. But the density of people like that, I don't think you'll find it anywhere else on earth. And what I realized is I'm grieving not having that around me every day, all day long, and can't replace it. It's irreplaceable.
Yeah, that is fascinating in terms of all walks of life. Our identity needs to be rooted in being sons of God and children of God. In resting in that identity is quite difficult for a performance mindset personality type. So when we have a performance mindset personality type that has been rewarded since we've been children, like run faster, get rewarded, jump higher, get rewarded, work harder, get rewarded, show up early, stay late. There's all these worldly rewards for that. And then that's increased, I'm sure, significantly inside of those special operations communities. And then you come out of that and you have to really wrap your mind around that your identity is a son of God, a child of God. And talk about a hard shift, because even as you are working on that shift, everything around you is telling you it's still a performance-based, it's still a reward-based system.
Yeah. This is the great lie. It's not the military. It's men in general. It's everything about our society as in the West, but it's really worldwide. And what the great lie is if you do good, then you are a good person. And so I just try harder. This is the great lie that the enemy does to try to tempt us, is if I want God to be pleased with me, then I got to do good. And the military has taken it to extreme, and I would argue they should. Our country needs the military to take this to the extreme. However, it's every walk of life. So it's not like anybody listening to this episode would say, that's not where I live, because it's true of every single human being on earth. If I try harder, would God be pleased with me? If I work better, my boss appreciates it and I get a pat on the back, or I get a pay raise, or I get a promotion. If that's how life functions at work, or in my community, if it functions that way, then surely it functions that way with God, right? And the problem with this is, the great lie is that God is far more concerned about who we are, about being, than doing. And the who we are as men and women is infinitely more important to God. However, we live in a world where that doesn't matter. Just do good, and everybody smiles at you and pats you on the back. Where for God, it's like, yeah, of course you got to do good, but that comes out of being the son or daughter that I want you to be. And that is hard to do in a society that 100% of where we live is pointing us in the opposite direction.
Very hard. And I think it leaves guys feeling very confused and empty because the performance-based culture works from a worldly perspective. Like, if I work harder and get rewarded worldly, it actually works. And so what I've seen a lot lately, especially this year, and we're talking about the Mountain Tough community, is a really performance mindset community, because we're doing really hard training to try to make individuals more mentally tough. So everyone we attract to our brand has the performance mindset. But what you see a lot is that mindset works their whole life, and then they get in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, and they realize I keep moving the goalpost, and I keep moving the milestone. So I accomplish this, I feel the same. I accomplish this, I feel the same. I accomplish this, I feel the same. And they go through this kind of spiral of, well, now I'm really confused because it worked my whole entire life, and now it's not working anymore.
How come it's not working anymore, right?
Yeah. So that's what I'm seeing a lot this year with, the community members. It's been fascinating.
Yeah, man. I could be a case study for you because I'll tell you, I spent 23 years on active duty. One of the most disappointing days of my entire military career is the day after I won the Best Ranger competition. I spent 4 years of my life, virtually every day, and for most of those 4 years of my life, all day long, every day, preparing myself for Best Ranger. I competed 4 or 3 years in a row, and for 2 of those years, I finished 4th place in both years. I just assumed that's it, gave it my best. I had a chance to compete against the best of the best. 4th place is going to be good enough. And then eventually I got convinced I'm going to give it one more shot. Next year was the year that I won. I'm building towards a story. So for the listeners, hang with me for a second. Virtually every day and most of every moment of every day for 4 years was spent pursuing one goal. I'm standing at the end of the Best Ranger competition, having the, pistols in my hands and all of the applause and the recognition. And the very next day that I got up, it should have been the greatest day of my career, should have been the greatest day of my life. I got up, looked in the mirror and said, well, crap. What do I do now?
Oh, man.
That did not satisfy me.
Man.
And I wouldn't say this to anybody out loud. I just wasted 4 years of my life chasing as hard after something as any man on earth will ever chase after something. And now I got it, and it totally let me down. And I don't even know what to do next.
Oh.
And that was a really, really hard day, the day immediately after winning the Best Ranger. It was one of the most frustrating days of my entire military career, and I was frustrated with myself.
Mountain Tough is the fitness app trusted by the dedicated. Mountain Tough ethos is backed by, we've always wanted to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. So inside the Mountain Tough app, you're not only going to find all of our physical training programs, but you're going to find additional training as well so that you can stay sharp physically, mentally, spiritually, and nutritionally. The Mountain Tough app also allows you to train no matter where you are, anytime, anywhere. Additionally, the Mountain Tough app is going to have programs from beginners all the way up to elite athletes. And all of our programming is structured in a way that you can start with no gear at body weight, and you can go all the way up to programming that is full gear. So you can do that in a robust home gym or your local gym. There's no excuse for you not to start today. With Mountain Tough, you can conquer your goals with the ideal program for your lifestyle and schedule. Train with equipment or just your body weight on your phone, tablet, TV, or web browser. Most importantly, Mountain Tough will help you train your mindset so you are always ready for anything life throws your way. Mountain Tough is offering the Mountain Tough Podcast listeners an incredible offer. 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is use the code MTNPOD to redeem your 6 weeks of training. That'll be a 14-day free trial plus a whole additional 4 weeks of training. Just go to mountaintough.com and enter code MTNPOD for your 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app. That is wild. I mean, how did you process that? Because like I have interviewed a winner of Best Ranger on this podcast, and then we've been involved in some of the training of like future athletes in that competition. So I'm quite familiar with it, and I'm familiar with the life sacrifice that the winners go through to get on that podium. I mean, the dry fires.
Literally, you cannot hold anything back. It's going to take everything that you've got.
Yeah, it's a full-time training, 24/7, multiple-year process to get on that podium. And to leave that podium feeling empty like that, it's like, how did you start processing through that?
Now I'm just going to be real with you, and people are going to laugh at me, but I'm just going to tell you, this is how my relationship with God works. I'm staring in the mirror, shaving. Yesterday, I won the competition, and they put the pistols in my hands, and they engraved my name on the statue. And then the next morning, early in the morning, I'm shaving, getting ready to throw some PT clothes on and go to work and work out. And that's the biggest disappointment of my life. And what I heard while I was sitting there staring at the mirror with shaving cream on my face is the Lord saying to me, Jeff, you did this to yourself. I didn't do this to you. You did this to you. And then it was not so subtle rebuke from the Holy Spirit saying, you turned this thing into a mini idol. And then you got the idol that you were worshiping. And when you finally got the idol, you realized that idol can't possibly satisfy you. And basically, God kicked me in the seat of the pants and said, you did this to yourself, Jeff, because you started to, quote unquote, worship this thing. And it was never intended to fill you up. You thought it would fill you up, and you're standing at the platform and you're totally empty because you turned this into something it should have never been turned into.
Wow.
True story.
Wow.
I took the pistol into the commander's office, the Ranger Regimental Commander's office, the colonel of the Ranger Regiment, put the pistol on his desk and said, I don't want it. You can have it. In fact, melt it down and turn it into scrap metal. I don't care. I don't want it. I didn't explain to him why. I didn't give him all of the details, but that pistol is on display right now without ever having a round fired through it because of how shockingly disappointing this is. Now, the only reason I'm telling you about Best Ranger is because there are millions, and I'm being conservative with my number, millions of guys that are going to spend their entire life chasing after something, and God forbid, you're going to get it. And then you're going to experience what I experienced the day after winning Best Ranger.
Man.
It's going to let you down, man. Because it was never, you are built by God not to be able to be satisfied by something like that.
That is profound. I mean, it's such a profound laser black and white example of what many guys are going to experience throughout their lifetime. But the intensity in the like specific event being on a specific day of Best Ranger made it so sharp and so black and white. But, you know, many of our listeners are going to be like, well, I've experienced that in entrepreneurship. I've experienced that in business. I've experienced.
There are dudes that are going to try
hobbies.
that with relationships and with money and with power and with 50 other things, and it's going to leave you exactly where it left me.
So unpack the solution a little bit, because the solution has to be more around we look for God's will and we look for God's assignment in our lives, and we do our best to be obedient to what we feel like he's asking us to do, realizing that no idol can replace him?
Right. I don't think I have all of the answers here. In fact, I think there's some guys out there that are probably smarter than I am on this one. I'm still learning this answer. But I was aware of a couple of guys that I looked up to before even training for and competing in Best Ranger. So before this, the single biggest letdown of my life was winning the Best Ranger competition. So that's what I'm using to describe this. There was a Olympic athlete who went on to become a missionary. You guys are probably familiar with his name. His name is Eric Liddell. Liddell is sometimes how it's pronounced, or sometimes what people call him, but it's Little. And Eric Liddell was a British citizen who ran in the Olympics. Now get this, he was an Olympic favorite to win the 400-yard dash. And he found out that the 400 was going to be conducted on a Sunday. Well, Eric is a Christian and said, I can't compete on a Sunday. It's against my faith. So I'm going to compete in the 100, which is it's a universe's difference between the 400 and the 100.
Massive.
And he had a guy on the team that was Jewish and said, hey, listen, the finals of the 100 is on Saturday. That's your Sabbath. The finals of the 400 are on Sunday. That's my day of worship. Why don't you take the 400? I'll take the 100. So
unreal.
Long story, Eric Liddell runs and wins the gold medal. And then immediately after winning the gold medal, he's a superstar. Everybody wants his autograph. He's going to be a celebrity in England. And he starts selling everything, dispersing all of his goods, and getting ready to go on the mission field to China. If you've ever seen the movie Chariots of Fire, this is the same guy that I'm talking about. And Eric Liddell made a statement. It shows up in the movie. I heard this statement 50 times, but it never really hit me until after my greatest moment of disappointment, after the day after winning the Best Ranger competition, when people asked him, why would you throw your running career away? Are you stupid? You are maybe one of the world's greatest runners. Why would you leave that and go to China? His famous response spoke directly to my soul. He said it this way, when I run, I feel God's pleasure.
Yeah.
But God has made me for China. And I can run and I can enjoy it. And honestly, I can give more than anybody else out there. And I can go harder and come in faster than anybody else out there. And I interpret his phrase, I feel God's pleasure, as God made me fast and I'm going to be as fast as I can for him. But I know deep inside, he's made me for something else. I'm good at running and I'll blow people out of the water at running, but that's not what he made me for. He made me for him and for his sake. And when I do that, even running doesn't fill me up like being right in the middle of God's will.
Wow.
So I get up every day and I run really early in the morning as hard as I can. But truth be told, if you want to know, what do I spend every minute of every day of my life doing? It's running after the middle of God's will. And I just want to be right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And there has been no more satisfying moments of my life than just walking out the door and knowing I am right in the middle of God's will for me right now. Tomorrow might not be, but today I know I am. And nothing has satisfied me like that.
That's awesome. So powerful, because that's what all of us are looking for when we feel that emptiness inside of us, but we feel like the different pleasures of this world are going to satisfy that empty feeling. Yeah. Whether it's women or drugs, or whether it's hobbies, or whether it's accomplishments or conquering, we're all looking to try to fill that, while God is kind of waiting there the whole time, patiently and lovingly, saying like, you're actually looking for me.
Yeah.
It's wild.
And chase, I'm challenging your listeners, like chase after God as hard as you would chasing after the Olympic gold, because you cannot go wrong that way. You will be satisfied if you'll chase after him as hard as you'll chase after Olympic gold. Just don't mistake chasing Olympic gold being able to fill you up like chasing after God can.
Yeah. Well, transitioning transitioning from that into now that you've kind of had time to reflect on Black Hawk Down, since we've had some time between that now and then, when you think about God kind of being there the whole time, how do you look at that in reverse, in the rear view, and think about like this happened for several reasons? I always think about God is always helping us with like our spiritual capital, our financial capital, our intellectual capital, our relationship capital, and regardless of where we are, when we switch or we transition, those capitals come with us.
Yeah.
And those capitals come with us, which allows a lot of times like our platform to grow. And as our platform grows with our eyes on God, it gives us a great way to kind of spread that message that we wouldn't have had if we hadn't gone through the things that we had gone through. So how do you kind of view that in how your life has played out?
Yeah. I wouldn't have in my wildest dreams imagined I'd be doing what I'm doing right now. And quite honestly, I love it and wouldn't do anything else. Couldn't do anything else because I know this is exactly where God wants me. But I came back from Somalia different. And I don't mean just impacted by what I went through and what I saw and all of the killing that happened around me. Obviously, that impacted me. But what really changed me is there was a moment where I started to experience the eternal significance of what was happening around me. And I'm ashamed to say I should have known, I should have felt that, I should have been aware of that all along. You see, I joined the Army with a very, very strong faith. And I had been in the Army for 6 years before going to Somalia. And not only that, I had been to war 2 previous times before Somalia. The invasion of Panama in 89 and Operation Desert Storm in 91. I've been around bullets, I've been around killing, and I had a very solid faith in the middle of it. But man, something deeply spiritual happened to me immediately after the battle in Somalia. I did not see coming. Man, this caught me out of left field. So when the fight was over with, when we were still trying to figure out who's dead, who's wounded, who's missing in action, and how are we going to go back out there and fight tomorrow with whatever we've got left, because you don't stop until the mission's won, I started looking around and I started realizing, man, there's something bigger going on here than just good guys and bad guys and lots of people dead on both sides. This is maybe God is trying to teach me something. So without giving your audience the full story, I'll just tell you that for most of those 18 hours, I was vastly outnumbered, and not only vastly outnumbered, but having been to war enough, having been in enough gunfights to know this is a 100% certainty. I will die. It's a matter of time. Might be in 5 minutes, but it will be tonight. There is no way I will see the light of day. And I had total peace because I knew where I was going to spend eternity. I know I'm going to die, but I also know I'm going to be with Jesus in heaven in the next few moments, so I'm ready. And when I walked away from the battle the next day without a scratch, I started looking around me and I started seeing something that was there all along, but I just never noticed it. And I started to see how spiritually helpless a lot of my buddies were. They just were not spiritually ready for what they just went through. And now they've gone through it. They need some help. And I have never actually heard an audible voice from God. But as clear as anything I have ever experienced in my life, I had a moment where I felt God saying to me, Jeff, I want you to do something different with the rest of your life. I thought I was just going to be an Army Ranger, kick in doors, kill bad guys, get up, go to church, love Jesus, love my family, do those things and do them for the rest of my life. And I had this inescapable moment where I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, he was calling me to try to impact the soul of America's warriors.
Wow.
I knew that immediately.
Wow.
So here's the thing. I came back from Somalia. I immediately went to my pastor and I went to my unit chaplain and I asked them both this question. I said, how do you know if you're being called into ministry? And both of those guys had to pick themselves up off the floor when I asked that. I came home from those two meetings and I said to my wife, I think God is calling me into ministry, and she will permit me to say this. It's the God's honest truth. She said, no, I don't want that. And I said, I don't want that either, but I don't think he gives us a vote. He's telling us this is what we're going to do next, whether you want it, I want it, or we want it or not.
Oh.
And to this day, every single day that I get up, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt what he wants me to do. And there are some days where it's really, really hard to pull it off. But the thing that keeps me going is I know there's no question in my mind what he wants me to do. And he wants me to leverage the rest of my life trying to reach the warrior, America's warriors at the soul level. And I saw that firsthand in Somalia. I'm ashamed to say I should have seen it long before this battle, but it was the first time my eyes were ever opened to how spiritually unprepared most of these guys were for eternity. Most of them were for the work of going overseas and killing and being killed, and they need somebody to get them ready. And
Wow.
I felt the Lord tap me, not even tap me, punch me in the chest and say, it's you, Jeff. You're going to get them ready.
Wow. Hey guys, I did want to interrupt for a quick minute right here and let you know about some supplements I've been taking. I did shy away from supplements for a long time. I was always cautious about what they were made out of, where they were from, and who the team was behind the brands. But over the last couple of years, I've got to meet the team at Mountain Ops from top to bottom, and they are an amazing group of humans. I've got to know the CEO, Trevor Farnes, really well, and he is a mission-focused individual that cares about humans living a better quality of life so that they can have that abundant life. So over the last couple of years, he has helped me add some things that have changed the game for me. One of those things that I've added is creatine from Mountain Ops. It helps me maintain some muscle mass, but also it's a big player in cognitive function, one of the most researched supplements out there. Also, I've added reds, greens, and protein, all from Mountain Ops. What I found as a busy professional, always on the run, I do eat a whole foods diet for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but on the go, it's hard to get enough vegetables, fruits, and protein. So I've added that from Mountain Ops, and it has significantly changed the game. I can feel it in my performance. I haven't got sick for a long time, and I can certainly feel it in my mental clarity as well. The last thing I've added is the Mountain Tough Hydrate product for the backcountry, for hunting season. When I'm in the hills, I do run short on those electrolytes. We even have a Mountain Tough flavor, the Mountain Tough Lemon Lime Hydrate, and that is a game changer for hydration in the backcountry. So I keep it really simple. That is all I've added to my protocol, and it has certainly helped me, and I certainly believe in the team and the culture behind Mountain Ops. They have started an initiative that's been around for a while called Conquer Hunger. Conquer Hunger is giving meals to hungry kids that aren't getting enough food, and they've given out over 6 million meals plus to kids through their Conquer Hunger initiative. So every order that happens at Mountain Ops, a percentage of that order goes to Conquer Hunger. So certainly an incredible company, an incredible culture. As a listener to the show, you do get an exclusive offer to Mountain Ops, so make sure you check that out. The offer is incredible as a first-time purchase at mountainops.com. So build your order if it's your first time. They are offering you a 20% exclusive discount. All you need to do is enter the promo code Mountain Tough, all one word, all caps, for 20% off your first order at mountainops.com. It's crazy because you think about the analogy of how like the best person to help an alcoholic is an alcoholic. And the way that worked out in your life is so cool because if you wouldn't have been a ranger, it would have been much more difficult for you to help rangers spiritually.
Yeah.
Like,
let's just be honest. It would have been almost impossible for me to do it. Almost, not quite, but almost impossible.
Yeah, to walk in off the street and try to talk to that community about their faith without earning that respect and being through the same pipeline and the same schools, the same training next to those guys for all those years.
Yeah.
And then to kind of shift was God's plan probably the whole time.
Yeah, and I'll say it again, man, I never saw this one coming. It was completely out of the, I had never for a moment in my life considered this. And I didn't exactly want it, at least not at first. I was like, I do not want to do that with the rest of my life, but it is undeniable what I'm supposed to do next.
Do you remember how long the season was of like obedience or disobedience?
Yeah, I spent about 6 weeks fighting this, and I was fighting it with everything that I got. Like, God, let's talk about what you're putting on my heart to do. Do you realize what I'm going to have to give up to do this? And then after 6 weeks, I just came to the, okay, God, you win.
You got me.
I saw what Jonah did when he tried to, go the other direction. I'm not going to try to pull that one off. You're God, I'm not, you win, I lose. Actually, I didn't lose. I didn't realize it at the time, but it's a win-win. But you're God, I'm not going to try to do what Jonah did. So whatever you want me to do next, God, I'm in. I'm all the way in.
So what did that look like at first? A shift in to chaplain?
Yeah, you want to know what's scary? I knew. I started working on my own because I joined in high school and went to basic training and straight to the Rangers right out of high school. So I didn't have any experience. I started going to college on my own, and I almost knocked out an entire Army or an entire 4-year degree while I was still in the Army Rangers before telling anybody. But then I'll never forget this. There was a moment I got offered. I was going to get promoted. I was already a sergeant first class, a platoon sergeant with the Rangers, and I was about to get promoted, and I got offered a job, and I hung my head in shame, and I said, man, I can't believe I'm about to say this out loud, but here we go. And I said to our regimental sergeant major, I can't take this job, and it is an incredible offer, but I can't take it. And he was shocked. He quite honestly looked at me like, are you stupid? Why would you turn this down? And I was like, I can't believe I'm about to say this. Here we go. I feel like I'm supposed to go be a minister. And that statement, I'm not exaggerating, before I left the office, it was spreading like wildfire across the halls and out of the building and across the campus. Like, Jeff's going to go be a missionary in Africa. And I was like, I never said missionary and I never said Africa. But I'm trying to tell your audience, I was genuinely scared to say it out loud because I was scared of what people would think about me. And then it was a reminder, Jeff, do you want people to be impressed with you or do you want to please God? Which of the two do you want? Now, you might be able to do both, but if you can't, which of the two do you want? And I should have never been intimidated to tell my boss, sorry, can't do it. I know I'm supposed to pursue ministry and do that next.
Man,
he was totally cool with it. By the way, he became one of my biggest supporters. I thought he was going to kick me out of his office and, ridicule me, laugh in my face, and then kick me out of the office. But man, I was a grown man scared to tell my boss, no, I think I'm supposed to go into ministry because of my reputation. I was worried about what people are going to think about me. And I should have never been.
This is so cool because I had no clue at all that we were going to get into this discussion today. But the way that God works is amazing because for a big part of the last 6 months, we've been talking about this exact thing. And the exact thing is when we relate that to how we started the discussion of masculinity and men, how they're feeling, what they're up to, the decline in masculinity, the increase of complacency, passivity, substances. It all is connected to you don't feel great when you know what God wants you to do and you don't do it. And when you don't feel great, you start really looking for other ways to feel great. So all of this is very much connected.
You try to find some medicine that will make you feel great, but unfortunately the medicine can only treat the symptom. It can't fix the problem.
Yeah. And so we've been grilling into this, and we have definitely grilled into that there are a lot of American men that have heard God indicate to them that they should be up to something else. It doesn't have to be profession.
Yeah,
A lot
sure.
of times it is. Sometimes it's a move. Sometimes it's fitness.
Sometimes it's just leading your family better.
Yeah. So we have landed on that a large population of men have heard that. They've felt in their spirit that they're supposed to do something, and they locked up, and they locked up for two reasons. The biggest reason that we hear over and over and over again is fear of what other people are going to think.
Yeah, well.
The second one is fear of finances. So can I pay my mortgage? What about this SUV payment? How am I going to do this? And those two things create a lot of disobedience or delayed obedience. Yeah. And a lot of guys are sitting in that delayed obedience window right now, and they aren't feeling good, and they don't know exactly why.
I would agree completely. Those two things will hamstring you as a man of God, a man who's following after God. And I admitted it. I wrestled for about 6 weeks really hard with God about doing this, just because I had a plan for my life and this was nowhere close to it. But I'm ashamed to say, when I'm sitting in the regimental sergeant major's office, I didn't want to say out loud that I was pursuing ministry. I was honestly looking for some cockamamie excuse not to take this job so that I didn't have to say it out loud, because I was worried about my reputation. And I quite literally cared more about what people thought about me than what God thought about me. I will say it was almost an immediate weight off of my shoulders when I finally got it out. I'm like, okay, I'm not to be crass, but it's time to be a man, reach down between my legs, man up, and just say out loud what I'm about to say next. And there's no getting this back. So I'm going to have to deal with the consequences of just getting very vocal about it. But I say that because I don't think God has any secret saints. Like, there are plenty of dudes that they share this faith, but they don't want to say it because they don't want to deal with the fallout, or they don't want to deal with what it's going to do to their reputation, or what if people are going to hold me to a higher standard. And I'm like, it's time for you to man up and tell people about your faith and tell them how it impacts you. And who knows, maybe God will use that to touch their life. But if not, the enemy will keep you in the closet, and he will keep you miserable just for the sake of your reputation. Is having somebody else's approval worth the kind of misery of knowing that you're not, that you're not following your Father in heaven like he's asking you to?
Well, and you can see everything now so clearly, which is so cool, because like the guys that are in it right now, which there's millions of them, can't see it. But now where you're at, you can see it. So you see two things, I'm sure. One is all those guys you were worried about, a lot of them didn't really care. And a lot of them now, you would never care what they thought about the decision you made.
That's great. I find that absolutely true and pretty funny. Now that you mention it, I'm super freaked out about what a lot of guys are going to think about me, when in honesty, they didn't think anything about me at all. Like, Jeff, you're not that big of a deal. Why do you think you're such a big deal? Yep. And the dudes that did think something about me, I don't really care that much what they think in the first place. So why was I living with this? I'm going to use this language because you guys would understand it. With this 100-pound pack on my back, why was I living with this and walking around with it? Why don't you just get rid of it, get it out, and say it out loud?
The second thing that is cool that you can see now is, like, when we say yes to God's will and we step into obedience, we know as Christians it's not going to be easy. It's often going to be quite more difficult than we ever imagined. And and it's going to be uncertain, and it's going to be attacked by the enemy 24/7. But reminder, we talked about those two main reasons most guys are locked right now: the fear of what other people are going to think, and then the fear of finances. But now, where you are at, you have seen God's provision. So you've seen, like, there was probably seasons where you didn't know exactly where the money was coming from. It showed
very
up.
next day, how am I going to pay the bills now?
Yeah, but you've seen God provide year after year after year, probably in like miraculous ways.
Yeah, your audience would get this. I'll say what you guys are hearing right now is 100% true. So if you stay in the dark and hiding what you know that God is telling you to come out and to pursue relentlessly, it will be difficult. And quite honestly, it may make your life more difficult tomorrow than it is today. But I'll just remind you, you're tough. You're physically tough. You're spiritually, or you're mentally tough. And just stepping out and starting to pursue God's plan for you, God's purpose for your life, let's put it that way, will start to make you spiritually tough. And I'm just going to say this: there is nothing on earth that can stop a man or a woman who is physically tough, mentally tough, and spiritually tough. There is nothing on earth that can stop that. So consider it like a hard training day. It's time to get out there and get after it.
I love it. When you said that, it made me think we interviewed this gentleman whose name is Dr. Jim Lohr, and he is a specialist on human performance, and he got the chance to run the Johnson & Johnson Performance Institute, and he studied 250,000 individuals on mental toughness. And what he found is that the only ones that could maintain and sustain a elite level of mental toughness had a spiritual component.
Yeah.
And that connects to like your Black Hawk Down Mogadishu experience. It's like mental toughness is different thinking about eternity than not thinking about eternity.
Yeah.
And the way that he, being not a believer as he was going through that process, identified that there is a spiritual thread to this mindset. And the spiritual thread allows that mindset to go from an elite level to a higher elite level.
And that's because there's something now inside of me that's not organic to me. It's from the outside in, and it's working inside of me to make me tougher than I could ever be on my own. But by the way, the toughest man who ever walked on earth willingly bled and died for me. So how could I give anything less for a savior like that? So if you want the ultimate picture of real toughness, physical, mental, and spiritual, you need to look no further than Jesus dying on the cross. And he's the master that I'm trying to follow after. So yeah, the event, although it's hard and it's taxing me physically and mentally and perhaps spiritually, it's not nearly as difficult as what Jesus went through. So every day is an easy day compared to what Jesus had to go through.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you, Jeff. I know we are limited on time and we need to wrap things up, but I appreciate you so much for jumping on, and it was a pleasure to get to chat with you today. And I love your words of wisdom backed up by life experience. It's really helpful to me, and I'm sure many, many listeners. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks.
Appreciate it.
It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you around.
Right, bye. Man, what a phenomenal conversation with Jeff. That one was really helpful for me. He covered so many topics, the performance mindset and how that can snag a lot of us up, and the black and white example that he used around multiple years of training full-time, 12 hours a day for the best Ranger competition, winning and then the day after feeling like it's the worst day of his life. That was the big golden nugget for me, for sure. Thinking about these idols that we go after, these milestones, moving the goalpost after we achieve one thing to try to achieve the next thing. If we're not doing that for the right reasons and for the right purpose, we are going to spend all that energy and all that time and leave those successful events depressed and unfulfilled. And his best Ranger example was so poignant, so black and white of how that can feel, how that can go if we're not doing it for the right reasons. So think about that and what you guys are up to in your own personal lives. Love you guys. Thanks for being here, and we will see you on the next episode.